What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports. It's Clemson versus Ohio State, a rematch from last year's college football semifinal playoff matchup. We get to see it again this year, and this is a highly anticipated game for a number of different reasons. It almost feels like this is starting to turn into a rivalry. Now, for it to be a rivalry, though, Ohio State's going to have to win pretty soon because Clemson has definitely gotten the best of this Ohio State team in recent years. Most people seem to think Clemson's going to win this game easily. They look back at how dominant they were against Notre Dame. They look at Ohio State's struggles against Northwestern. Be careful, because I don't think those two games are going to tell the whole story of how this game is going to unfold. I think this is going to be a great game. I think it will be a close game. I do not think Clemson is easily going to win it. I think Ohio State has a chance to win it. I think Clemson, I understand why they're the favorite, but again, this is, I think, going to be a great matchup. I really think this is going to be a one possession down to the last play type of game, and I am really looking forward to seeing what happens. Cannot wait for this one. I mean, I'm just excited to watch these two teams play again. Let's get into it here, our preview and prediction. The Sugar Bowl, they're playing in New Orleans. Not a ton of fans at this game, but there will be some fans there. It's 2 versus 3. The game is at 8 o'clock Eastern Time, 7 o'clock Central Time on ESPN. New Year's Day, January 1st, 2021. Who's ready to turn the page to 2021? This will be, again, the nightcap. We'll have Alabama versus Notre Dame first, and I did a preview on that game yesterday. If you missed it, go back and watch it. Clemson favored by 7.5 in this one. The over-under at 67.5. I understand that spread. It makes sense to me, but I don't know that I would go with Clemson to cover because, again, I think this is going to be a close game. I think people are overreacting to the final game of the year. Remember Ohio State against Michigan State? They look like a dominant team. They look great. Remember Clemson in some of their games this year? They haven't looked great. I mean, you have to look at these teams and really dissect the entire roster and look at, I mean, a lot of different things. You can't just base it off of one game. I think that's what people are doing. And again, I think if you think Ohio State has no chance in this game, you're probably going to be mistaken, because I think they're going to have a chance in this game. But again, I understand Clemson being favored. I would favor Clemson here as well, based off of what we have seen this year. And this is the stats for the two teams. If you look at the points per game, very high. Both teams score a lot. Points allowed, Clemson's defense has been a little bit better. Total yards, Ohio State actually has a bit of an advantage there. They haven't done great in the red zone, and I think that's why you see Ohio State with a higher total yardage number, but Clemson with more points per game, because Clemson has been more efficient in the red zone. That could be a key to this game. Remember last year, Ohio State struggled in the red zone. They kicked field goals. They're going to need to put some touchdowns on the board in this one if they're going to have a chance. You look at the passing, then this is surprising. Clemson with a pretty big advantage in the passing game, and this year they have thrown it a lot more than they've run it. They have not had the same success that they've had in recent years running the football. Travis Etienne has been solid, but he hasn't been a Heisman candidate like he was last year. I think a lot of that is because of the offensive line, and I think Ohio State has an advantage on the offensive line. They have a great offensive line. I think coming into this year, they had the potential to have the best offensive line in the country. I think Alabama kind of took that spot this year. They were so dominant up front, but Ohio State at times has looked really good on the offensive line. And again, this is a team that's only played 6 games. They've had a lot of guys out. Remember the one game, or maybe a couple of games, they had, I think, 2 or 3 starters on the offensive line out. So we really haven't seen Ohio State play their best, in my opinion. And if they do play their best against Clemson, again, I think they're going to have a chance to win this game. Yards allowed, that's a big advantage for Clemson. They only give up 298.5 yards per game. Ohio State 358 passing yards. That is, again, a big advantage for Clemson. Both teams pretty similar against the run. And again, it's tough to compare when you look at these stats. That just doesn't tell the whole story. Clemson played a lot more games. They also played totally different schedules. I mean, we don't know how good the Big Ten is. Maybe the Big Ten is really good. That's why they've been beating up on each other, just because all the teams are really good. Or maybe they're terrible. Maybe the Big Ten's awful. Maybe Ohio State's awful. I mean, we just don't know. With absolutely no non-conference games to compare, it's impossible to know, but I think we have a pretty good idea of how good these teams are and how good these conferences are, and we're going to find out in this matchup. and it's going to be a good one in my opinion. And we're going to find out really starting today with some of these bowl games where conferences will be playing against each other. Although a lot of the bowl games, you have opt-outs, you have players not actually playing, so that maybe really doesn't tell the whole story either. This is going to be an interesting offseason trying to predict what's going to happen next year. But let's get back to this game. Again, stats favor Clemson, but it's pretty close. Not a huge advantage for Ohio State. Again, in the red zone is where I think Clemson has a big advantage. You look at the leaders for these two teams, Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence, of course, at quarterback. You look at their numbers. Big difference is the interceptions. Justin Fields in half as many games has thrown 5 interceptions. Trevor Lawrence has done a much better job taking care of the football. And I say half as many games. I forgot Trevor Lawrence actually missed a couple of games there as well. So, again, numbers are somewhat similar. I think missing something that's not on this screen is actually what these two guys can do on the ground. Trevor Lawrence has had a much better day running the football. Justin Fields just doesn't run it a whole lot, and I think that's going to have to change in this game if they're going to have a chance to win. He is going to have to run the football. I think that is one way you can beat this Clemson defense. And look at the numbers. Actually, Trevor Lawrence hasn't really run it much more than Justin Fields, and he's played more games. So maybe I'm reading too much into that, but it just feels like Justin Fields, I guess it's more of the designed runs. We don't see a whole lot of designed runs for Justin Fields. Maybe he scrambles more than Trevor Lawrence, but I think design runs are going to have to happen for Ohio State in this game, running that read option, things like that. Rushing yards, Trey Sermon, of course, exploded. He got like half of those yards in one game. We're going to see if that can continue against this Clemson defense. Travis Etienne, like I said, has been very good this year. He's been one of the top running backs probably in the country, but he hasn't put up those huge numbers, only averaging 5.6 yards per carry. So that is also very interesting, but he's been a big threat through the air. Actually has 44 catches, 524 yards receiving, which is a way that he can definitely beat you. So you look at everything he brings to the table. Again, this is still one of the top backs in the country. He just hasn't had the numbers this year. And then on the receiving side of things, Garrett Wilson actually leading Ohio State in receiving, 621 yards. Amari Rodgers has emerged as that next star for Clemson. He's almost to 1,000 yards. He should get to 1,000 yards after this game. Chris Olave being out for Ohio State obviously has been a big deal. He is expected to be back. Again, that is, in my opinion, a big deal for Ohio State, having him back. He is the leader. I know Garrett Wilson actually has more catches, has more yards, averages more yards per reception, but Chris Olave still, in my opinion, is the go-to guy. He is the top receiver, and those two guys are going to be tough. You're going to need some of the young freshmen to step up here as well. Julian Fleming hasn't done a whole lot, but a very talented kid. Jackson Smith Najaba, he's only had 6 catches this year. Jamison Williams, a younger guy. They're going to need some help, and that's something that Justin Fields has really had a problem with this year, is really zoning in on Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. They will have to be more balanced, maybe get the tight end involved, Jeremy Ruckert. Have to do something like that, because you're not going to beat Clemson by throwing to 2 guys. You're not going to beat Clemson by not running the quarterback. This is a very good Clemson defense, and again, I think they're going to have to change things up, get a little bit more balance if they're going to have a chance to win this game. So this is what the bettors are saying about this game. You look at the spread here. Again, Clemson's 7.5-point favorites. 65% going in that direction. So most people are taking Clemson to cover, which surprises me, honestly. 7.5 is a big number. Ohio State's a really good team. I've said this over and over. I think this is going to be a close game. I understand Clemson. If I was going to bet straight up, I definitely would see Clemson having an advantage there. But against the spread, that is a surprise. And then you also look at the over-under. It's at 66.5. 62% going with the over. So everyone seems to think this is going to be a shootout, going to be a high-scoring game. I also think it will be high-scoring. I don't think either one of these defenses are elite. They both have playmakers. Ohio State's been really good at getting turnovers. Clemson's been, really solid against the run, like I said. I don't think either defense, though, is, like I said, going to be an elite defense. And so I think we're going to see points, but I don't think it's going to be a crazy shootout. I think that 66.5 is actually pretty close. I think it's going to be around that number. We'll see what happens there. So the OddsShark calculator, whatever you want to call it, their predicted score comes out with Clemson winning 43.5 to 34.6, so roughly a 44-35 win. They have Clemson covering. They have this going over. And if you look at these two teams against the spread, they're both very similar. Clemson 5-6 against the spread. Ohio State 3-3 against the spread. Both teams really haven't been great or haven't been bad. They've been right at 500, which should tell me that spread's probably pretty accurate. And you're going to see Clemson win this game by about 7 points if those odds did play out. Obviously, that does not tell the whole story. So what does the FBI think about this? Again, Vegas thinks this is going to be a win for Clemson, and they will actually cover. They think that this is going to be a fairly easy win, a touchdown or more win for Clemson. But the FBI actually has this as a 50-50 game, right down the middle. How about that? No team, no advantage for either team. 50-50. I mean, I don't know if I've seen that before from the FBI. So they think it could go either way. I agree with the FBI. I'm trending toward, again, a very close game. So what is my prediction? This is a tough one. This is a really tough one. It's just, I've gone back and forth on it, on how I think this game is going to play out. If you watch these two teams, if you watch them play this year, if you've seen them, you've studied them, you've watched the way they've played and everything all year long, I think you'd have to go with Clemson in this matchup. They've played better. They've been more sound. Trevor Lawrence has played better than Justin Fields. The defense for Clemson, I think, has played a little bit better. They've had more games, and I know there's this big thing about Ohio State not playing as many games, and they don't deserve to be here. Well, that's an argument, but if you're going to say that it gives them an advantage in the playoff, I disagree with that, because I think they have just not been able to get into much of a rhythm, especially offensively. When you look at the games that have been disrupted, all the players that have been out, I mean, how many games have they had with their full roster? It hasn't been many. I think that's been a big disadvantage for Ohio State this year. And coming into this game, they just really have no rhythm. And I think that, again, goes to Clemson's favor. And you look at these things, it's hard to pick against Clemson. Having said that, it's not just about what we've seen this year. I know that's what, again, if you're an analyst or whatever you want to call yourself, and you've studied these teams, again, Clemson is the pick here. Clemson has looked better. They have been the better team this year, and I don't think it's really all that close. But if you go back to the offseason, before the season even began, and you put the time in that I put in studying these teams, studying these rosters, really looking at what these teams have, Clemson, or Ohio State, I should say, matches up with Clemson. This is a very talented team. They're a team that can compete in this game. And I don't think it's necessarily the X's and O's. I don't think it's necessarily the way these teams have played this year. I don't think it's any of that. I think it's going to come down to the motivation factor in this game. It's such an important deal in college football. And I know you're going to say it's the college football playoff. Both teams are going to be motivated. How could one team have an advantage here? Well, this year I think we are, and we've seen this before. Remember Alabama Clemson a few years ago when they played in the semifinal? Alabama was a really motivated team. They were avenging that loss to Clemson from the year before. They dominated that game defensively. I just think that when you look at this and you look at the motivation factor that plays into this, it favors Ohio State going all the way back to last year, and the focus that they had this offseason and getting their revenge on Clemson. It was really all you heard from Ohio State. They were so focused on beating Clemson. They wanted to play this year. Felt like they had a chance to get to a national championship. Now you look at Dabo out there saying all this stuff about how they don't deserve it, how he ranked them at number 11. The motivation factor in this game goes to Ohio State, in my opinion. That's not something you can measure. It's not something you can look at in a stat. It's just kind of a gut feeling. Go back to the Notre Dame game for Clemson. They were really motivated in that game. They came out, especially defensively, and played really, really well. Go back to the Ohio State game against Michigan State when everyone was doubting them. They played their best game of the year with a bunch of guys out. I would love to see these two teams play 100% their best game, and I think if they did that, it would be a game that came down to the wire because, again, I just think these two rosters are very talented. But I just think Ohio State's going to want this game a little bit more. And again, this is just a gut feeling. You can say whatever you want in the comments about how this is a terrible prediction. It's a gut feeling. Again, if I've watched these teams all year, I would pick Clemson. But I have a gut feeling that Ohio State's going to win this game. You go back to 2014. No one was giving them a chance against Alabama. It's just a similar feel to me. And I have no real reason to tell you why Ohio State's going to win this game, other than it's just, again, a gut feeling. I just have a gut feeling that Ohio State's going to pull off this upset and beat Clemson. 37-31 is my prediction. Ohio State over Clemson. I think Ohio State will struggle early in the red zone, just like last year. Clemson's defense very good in the red zone, so I think you're going to see this team have to settle for some field goals. But I think they're going to move the ball. I think they're going to move the ball up and down the field. I think their defense, which has been really good at forcing turnovers, will get a couple of turnovers in this game, maybe an interception and a fumble. And because of that, that's going to make the difference. Some key plays by this Ohio State defense, those are going to make the difference. I think Justin Fields will use his legs in this game. I think you're going to see him run the ball more than he's run all year long. I think he has to. This is it. This is the college football playoff. You got to put it all out there. You can't worry about getting hurt. And if they play him the right way, it's going to put a lot of pressure on this Clemson defense. They're going to be able to stretch the field. They found something in the run game with Trey Sermon and this great offensive line, which again, at 100%, is one of the best offensive lines in the country. And because of that, I think Ohio State is going to win this game. Again, it's just a gut feeling. I just feel like there are some things that are going to go in their direction, go in their favor, and I'm going to pick it. Picking the upset. Ohio State 37, Clemson 31. Again, my prediction. I understand there's going to be a lot of debate on this one. I may be totally wrong. We'll see. I don't feel confident. I wouldn't feel confident either way in this game. I feel confident that Alabama's going to beat Notre Dame, and the game's not going to be all that close. But this one, no, I don't feel confident, but I'm going to go with my gut. Going to go with the Buckeyes. Ohio State 37-31. And just to be clear, I am not an Ohio State fan. They're not even really one. I don't really hate any teams, but I would say that Ohio State's probably not one of my favorite teams. So it has absolutely nothing to do with me liking Ohio State. I can promise you that. It's just, again, a gut feeling. Ohio State over Clemson, 37-31. What do you guys think? Give me your prediction down in the comments below. Does anyone else agree with me? I know Ohio State fans are probably going to pick the Buckeyes, but if you're not an Ohio State fan, tell me who your team is. Tell me, leave your prediction in the comment, and then tell me who your favorite team is. I always find that interesting how fans of certain teams predict certain games to go. So give me your predictions again in the comments, and then also give me your favorite team, and we'll see what you guys think and see if anyone else agrees with me that Ohio State is going to pull off this upset. Going to be a lot of fun. Can't wait for Friday. Can't wait to watch these matchups and some big bowl games starting today. Really, we're going to get several, I think, exciting bowl games starting today, and then tomorrow we'll have Florida, Oklahoma. Really looking forward to that one. Going to be a lot of fun as we close out this 2020 college football season, and then, of course, we will start looking ahead to 2021. You're going to see videos all year long about college football here on this channel. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more here on the SG1 Sports College Football Channel.